But as far as I understood from Hector, you are accustomed to like 14-minute presentation, and then we can have a discussion afterwards. So I will basically present based on the work that I have been doing on issues of migration control and borders, and what is usually understood as crimmigration. And for that, I think I will share a PowerPoint presentation with you, since it might be also easier to follow my arguments in that way. So I'll share the screen. I hope it works okay. Let me see. I hope you can see the screen now. What I would like to start with today is the recent developments that have been taking place in the United States and that have captured a lot of also international attention, which is the extreme focus on deportation that the current United States president has been having, and especially the deportation of a number of foreign citizens to El Salvador, and the agreement that the United States has made with El Salvador. These people have been designated as dangerous gang members, and especially the question of deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia has raised a lot of controversy. Now, I would like to take this example as a starting point for the discussion today, because the question is, how unique is this? I have written a book called The Crimmigration Other, which sort of examines the use of the connections between immigration and crime as an element of contemporary populist discourse. What I would like to suggest today also, that this is an increasingly prominent aspect of global power relations. And the question of deportation of so-called crimmigration others is in a way of projecting power both domestically and globally. That the border and border control has been now for quite a long time a site of spectacle, of political spectacle, but is also, especially in the case of the United States now, very much a site of articulation of sovereignty and penal power, and also through that a vehicle for the growth of authoritarian force of government and of exceptionalism. But the question that I would like to start with is, how unique are actually current developments? Because the banishment of, first of all, migration is a sort of universal feature of history, and in that way not unique at all. And also historically, we now have increasingly strong historic documentations about how nations have been using historically so-called punitive mobility to satisfy their social and geopolitical ambitions. And especially I'm drawing here on the book of Claire Anderson and her previous work, which has shown how banishment of convicts has enabled colonial powers to export their social problems abroad, as well as to enhance their imperial projects. Now, what I will be saying today, that this sort of projection of power, it has distinct domestic aspects, that it is playing to the domestic audience, but then also has an international aspect. Now, in that way, US developments, although extreme in many ways, especially in terms of rhetoric, are not unique, but are part of a broader criminological development that has been within criminology described as a development studied within a field called border criminology, which has pointed out also that contemporary popular punitiveness is increasingly being played out through nationalist narratives of border protection and expulsion. Here I'm referring especially to the work of Vanessa Barker on penal nationalism. I have probably one of the earliest articulations of these kinds of argument has been Juliet Stumpf's article on crimmigration law, which has sort of charted the increasing convergence of criminal law and immigration law within the US context. Now, that article came in the aftermath of 9/11, so in a way it is now almost 20 years old, but we have seen in a way a progressive development and strengthening of these developments, not only in the US context, but I have myself looked at the European and Scandinavian countries where we have seen some of the similar developments. And I have described this as development as a particular kind of penalty called border penalty, which sort of intertwines the power to punish and the power to banish. So immigrants are in a way subjected to a distinct form of penalty, which instead of thinking about correction, which is traditional penal rationality, is focused on banishment and deportation especially. So questions of deportation and deportability become increasingly important. And with that, citizenship status and membership status becomes of central importance to how and why states use penal power. So they, in the European context, and our research has found out that states can punish sometimes in order to be able to deport, but sometimes deportation can also be used instead of punishment. Now, this development of crimmigration law has several challenges in terms of rights. First of all, it has a potential for differential treatment and therefore discrimination. And this is, we have now extensive body of scholarship which has pointed out how the focus on immigration enforcement sort of strengthens the discriminatory elements of criminal law, especially racial discrimination. The other aspect that is sort of challenging in terms of rights is the extraterritoriality, or and this is particularly evident in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and the deportation to El Salvador, where people where it becomes people are sort of pushed outside of the national territory, and with that, through that, unable to access rights, and the state is very little willing to, in a way, offer forms of redress in terms of due process that they would be otherwise perhaps more easier able to access if they were inside of national territory. So this sort of tendency towards territorialization of borders and institutions, and I will say a little bit more about that later on, is also a particular challenge to rights and the rule of law. And the third aspect that it presents a challenge to rights and the rule of law is the aspect of othering, the populist discourse, and sort of the drawing on the discourse of invasion, and what I describe as this sort of figure of creation of crimigrant others. Please do stop me if you're not able to hear, or if there is something that is not working technically. Now, because of this sort of the focus on border control, membership status becomes increasingly important, and we see, for me as a criminal law scholar and criminologist, that in a way the question of whether you are a citizen or not creates different outcomes depending on whether you are a citizen or not. But what is also interesting is that punishment in itself then becomes a site of negotiation of boundaries of membership, and a site for clarifying.
Please, Katja.
Yes?
Please, can you, your slide is the...
Yes.
If you can continue your slide, please. If the
Yes.
we can open the second or the third.
Sorry.
Uh, we see the first. Okay, okay, okay.
Oh,
Yes,
you don't see the slides?
yes, we can see the slide. Now we can see the slide. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, I'll
Thank you.
try. Okay. So do you see the slide that says the injustice of membership?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you can
Okay.
continue. You can continue. The injustice
Okay.
of the
Thank you.
membership. Okay.
Yes. Is this the right? The slide says now the injustices of membership.
Yes.
Okay. Then I will continue. So what I sort of was arguing that through the relevance of immigration law, basically immigration law creates inequality within the system of rights. And Canadian scholar Catherine Deverne really nicely put it, because she says that the accident of being born in the global south becomes a legal handicap for citizens of these countries. So through the question of immigration status then function as a legal handicap that opens for differential treatment and also for determination of membership. So in a way, you could say that global inequality is inscribed into penalty through citizenship status. And because of that, I have, together with my colleague Dorina Damsa, written an article arguing that basically we should include citizenship status as one of the categories of intersectionality, in addition to race, to gender, and also class. I think also citizenship status should be incorporated as a category that produces unequal and often unjust outcomes within society and within the legal system. That citizenship status in a way intersects with other categories of social disadvantage, such as those created by race, class, gender, and ethnicity. And I think these different statuses that we can have then determines what kind of treatment we get within the justice systems. So we could say that traditionally we would have citizens, of course, but then wealth also can create conditions of super citizens. And interestingly, the United States is now looking into the sort of golden visa programs and questions of citizenship for sale, at the same time as the President Trump has announced the possibility of taking away citizenship to children who were born in the United States and who have the right to citizenship according to the US Constitution, but who were born to foreign parents. So we can see increasingly that citizenship becomes in a way undermined by various kinds of strategies, and especially the citizenship of second and third generation immigrants is increasingly questioned because their otherness is inherited from their parents. And it is not only the United States, but also European countries have, especially in the aftermath of 9/11 and various kinds in the course of the war on terror, opened for so-called denationalization, of taking away of citizenship of certain groups of citizens who have been, especially those who have been sort of defined as foreign fighters and so on. So in a way, the protective function of citizenship has been eroding, as especially Milena Tripkovic and Lucia Zedner's work has shown. And I will argue that, again, this productive role of the narrative of the crimigrant other, of immigrants as, in a way, criminals, has been really strong here. So Akile Mbembe, he says that today we see the principle of equality being undone by the laws of autochthony and common origin, as well as by divisions within citizenship, which is to say that the latter is descending into pure citizenship, that of the native born, and borrowed citizenship, one that is less secure from the start and is now not safe for feature. And I think this is what is also exemplified, for example, in the President Trump's sort of announcement of sort of that he will try to take away citizenship from those who have been born in the United States, but to foreign-born parents who are present illegally. Now, what we are also seeing is that this new rationality of crimmigration is creating new institutional regimes. And again, the United States, it's not unusual here. So in my work, I have worked in the European and Scandinavian countries and have sort of tried to chart these developments that we are seeing different kinds of emerging institutional regimes for housing of immigrant populations. Of course, detention centers are the most obvious example. Here on the top, we have an image of a detention center near Oslo Airport, which very much resembles a prison, but is not a prison. It is now increasingly also regulated as a prison, and we have reports and research showing that it is very much function as a high security prison. Norway, for example, also opened one prison exclusively dedicated to foreign offenders. So the people who were placed in that prison were only foreign citizens. This is the other image on top right. Norway also, interestingly, rented prison space from the Netherlands between 2015 and 2018. And Denmark has now made an agreement with Kosovo, for example, to rent prison space days. So the image on the bottom is the prison that Denmark will be renting in Kosovo. So this agreement that the United States has with El Salvador, even though the prison there seems to be unusually in its prison regime, the idea that a state can rent prison space abroad is not unique in that way, but is part of this crimmigration development. And one is doing that, for example, what Denmark hopes to do by placing foreign citizens in a prison in Kosovo abroad is also sending the symbolic signals that they do not belong into the national territory, that they will be deported after serving their sentence. So there's a lot of symbolic communication there, rather than that this will be a very sort of substantial place for imprisonment. So what I sort of tried to suggest also with the choice of this title today, that the deportation of criminal aliens is a power demonstration. And this is why I use the term hegemony in a term that as it is defined in the dictionary, also a sort of marking the position of being the strongest and most powerful, and therefore able to control others. And this hegemonic aspects of this crimmigration and border penalty, they have both historic roots, and they also have this sort of now contemporary particular contexts. In the terms of historic roots, I mentioned the work that Claire Anderson has been doing on punitive mobility, but also others. For example, Malcolm Feely pointed out that transportation is not a new, has a very long history as a form of punishment. So he pointed out that transportation to Australia, for example, though treated more seriously, is often presented as a dreadful but colorful chapter in the history of that continent's colonization rather than an integral part of English penal policy. This is a mistake because transportation was a significant feature of English penal policy for over 2 centuries and constituted its most significant form of serious sanctioning for half these periods. So it operated as the dominant form of severe sanctioning for a period longer than the modern prison has existed. Now, Malcolm Philly sort of writes very much from a national perspective and is sort of critical of this perception that we should focus on prison as the main form of punishment when actually penal transportation existed for equally long period of time and was a really, really important measurement. So it is in a way a message more sent to sort of my community of fellow colleagues, criminologists, which have been quite a lot focused on prison. Now, the work on Claire Anderson is sort of much more historically oriented and has pointed out the role that this punitive mobility, and under that she defines various kinds of what we would today think about deportation or basically sending out people as a form of penal measures. But then, and she pointed out that from the 17th to the 20th centuries, approximately 380,000 transportation convicts journeyed to and around locations across the British Empire. Now, she points out that states, imperial powers, and sometimes even trading companies used convicts to satisfy geopolitical and social ambitions. So convicts constituted a supply of unfree labor that could be used to occupy territories for economic and commercial reasons. In turn, these territories became places to which socially and politically undesirable people could be removed. So punitive mobility is connected to the history of governance and repression and to the creation of new modalities of work and organization, including racialized labor regimes. Now, when it comes to contemporary punitive mobility, we still lack sort of research on what this sort of pushing out of undesirable people is doing in terms of governance. And I will come back to that at the end of my talk. Now, what we see that this pushing out of undesirable people is doing for the states in the global north is that it is sort of solving their questions of they're trying to get rid of people that they do not want. And again, this is not simply what is happening in the United States now, but European countries have been doing this kind of pushing out of undesirable mobility for a very long time. And Sanja Milivojevic in her book has described this EU's neighborhood policy as creating a purgatory for migrants. And EU has been using its foreign policy basically as a kind of a stick and carrot approach by saying, let's say, to the countries in the Balkans that they can be prospective EU member state candidates if they are willing to comply in the sort of take migrants that are unwanted in the EU. And Turkey especially, but also Libya and other countries in Northern Africa have had this kind of role of basically being asked to do the work of European Union's immigration policy. And this is what we are seeing now that the United States is doing in terms of its neighbors and other Latin American countries. So here we have an image of detention centers built by Italy in Albania. And just now during Easter, there has been a sort of basically a controversy in Italy and a conflict between the Italian government and the judiciary in terms of whether Italy can send people into these detention centers. So we see a similar sort of politics being played out, perhaps not in such extreme language and in such extreme symbolic, with such extreme symbolic signals as we see in the United States, but nevertheless, we see some of the similar traits taking place also in Europe. And so the United States as European Union is then using foreign policy for its crimmigration objectives. And here is, for example, a tweet by President Trump in the when the Colombian president Pedro first declined to take Colombian citizens, deported Colombian citizens, back to Colombia in shackles, and the United States very effectively then used tariffs on all goods coming into the United States from Colombia, as well as visa revocation and so on, as a pressure mechanism to make Colombia take back its citizens. And it was very much effective. But what I'm also interested in is, in a way, the language that is being used here, because as if we can see here, that the President of the United States is very much using the language of national security and public safety to justify these policies. So he's presenting basically people who are being deported as a threat to national security and public safety, and this is what I call as a part of this narrative of the crimigrant other. And in my book with the same name, I sort of describe this as a kind of meta-narrative, a sort of global and totalizing cultural narrative about immigrants as criminal offenders. And in contemporary discourse, this narrative has very much a sort of racialized and gendered undertones of foreign men being being sort of labeled as dangerous criminal offenders. And this narrative then sort of creates an imprint for legitimate and morally justified social exclusion, and sort of engage basically mythologies that are immediately recognizable to audiences. Now, a question is, of course, whether this kind of punitive discourse, is it just a discourse? Is it just a lot of barking? Or how effective is it? But it's by no means new, because it draws, both in the US context, the first Trump presidency had a very similar discourse as the current one. And there was this very sort of famous case of Luis Bracamontes that several observers at the time, during the sort of midterm 2018 elections, these ads on Luis Bracamontes were aired on US television, and several observers pointed out that it had a lot of similarities with the so-called Willie Horton ads that basically determined, according to many analysts, the US national presidential elections in 1988, when the US when the President George Bush Sr. was sort of running against his Democratic counterpart Michael Dukakis. And there it was very much the sort of the racialized, the Black American men who were sort of cast as the sort of the subject of this symbolic politics, whereas now we see the dangerous Latino men who come into this kind of position. So the consequences of this punitive politics within the US context throughout the 90s, 80s, and 90s sort of resulted in mass imprisonment. Now what we see is that the current politics of crimmigration, in a way, first and foremost, does not seek to mass imprison, but rather to mass deport. So it's mass deportation rather than mass imprisonment. And it is very much a spectacle that we are seeing here. So this image on the right is also the Trump presidency basically started very symbolically by using the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo for and the use of military planes to transport deported migrants to Guantanamo as a very much a sort of symbolic gesture of placing these people to an island or to a space, political space that has been very controversial and basically defined as a kind of legal black hole for housing the most sort of notorious terrorists of 9/11. So I think it was very much a symbolic move. It wasn't in a way a move that has been lasted. So now it turned out it was both too expensive to use that naval base, but I think there was the effects of that move of placing at least some people into that island and raising a lot of publicity through that was very much geared towards spectacle. So I think this is sort of the mediated aspect, so that one is projecting signals that these people, first of all, are the most dangerous of the dangerous, which is a very controversial question, and that they belong to a space that is not regulated by law, as Guantanamo has not been. And then, of course, the use of military planes that sort of moves these people outside of the domain of criminal law, but very much into the domain of military law. Now, the other aspect and the other image that I have here is a tweet from the White House where they sort of allude to the sound of illegal alien deportation flights as ASMR. Now, I had to sort of look it up what this means, but it means basically ASMR is a sort of denotes the autonomous sensory response that basically means sounds that are pleasant. If we listen to sounds that are sort of senses that we think are pleasant, like listening to the waves, or and this is apparently a phenomenon on the internet, but and they sort of defined the sounds of shekels being used on a deportation flight as something that should be pleasant to the public, which is basically a sort of kind of, you could say, sadist activity, really, that we should enjoy the sound of people being deported, which again shows a very different kind of, in a way, the fact that we should enjoy the sound of somebody being excluded and treated in the way that and punished. So we see a very, very particular rhetoric, both a rhetoric of a military threat, and this is why one of the sort of early executive orders that was signed by the by the President Trump was to designate cartels and other organizations as global terrorist organizations, and then consequently the use also of this military law that basically allows the administration to or allegedly allows, what they're claiming allows them to deport people to this high security prison in El Salvador. And then also the images that are being projected. So here's another press release from the White House stating, here are just a few of the deprived criminal illegal immigrants, and sort of explaining in a way very much associating these immigrant men with the worst of the worst. So basically the idea is that the United States is importing crime from especially from Latin American countries, which is a sort of a very, very, very problematic assumption. Now, what are then the consequences of these developments? I think, as I mentioned, the consequences that have been debated most are the challenges that this these developments represents the rule of law and the universality of rights. And this is how this case of Kilmar Abrago Garcia has in a way received a sort of a symbolic also position within those who are opposing the current administration. Now, and it is a site where the administration is also directly actually challenging the courts and some of the statements that, for example, again, President Trump has had about the judges. In this case that I have here, the judge that sort of opposed his deportation and demanded that the flight should be turned back to the U.S. In a way, I think is very interesting. So where the president sort of insists that I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate, but fighting illegal immigration may have been the #1 reason for this historic victory. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers in our country. Make America great again. So obviously, this is here a direct opposition to the judiciary. But I think what is being done here, that this sort of discourse serves as a vehicle for accumulation of authority, and a particular discourse which privileges the nation. So hence the sort of reference to Vanessa Barker and her work on penal nationalism, this Make America Great Again, and also to belonging to the soil, that the idea that only people who belong to America, who are born in the American, should sort of benefit from this kind of policy. But what it is also doing, it serves as a vehicle, I think, for shaping not only the nature of the criminal justice institutions, but the entire political ecosystem and established forms of governance, and also serves as a vehicle for projecting racial supremacy and global hegemony of the United States. So hence the sort of basically the use of tariffs for the purpose of achieving the objectives. So I think I will stop here and stop sharing this screen and stop the presentation, and we'll open for the questions that you might have. I hope I didn't speak too quickly and that you could hear me okay.
Katja, thank you very much for your presentation. Your research, your topic is a key issue in our century. Our century, we can see it's very difficult to continue a national approach. Why? There are, for example, COVID-19. COVID-19 is a global approach, not national approach. In COVID-19, the people propose, no, my liberty, my decision, no, my personal approach to the pandemic. No. And the state and the health minister say, no, the state, the global system, the international system propose this different vaccine, no, different proposal, no, and it's mandatory for all the people. So we have a traditional liberal tradition in Western civilization, but in this moment there are many topics, many aspects that propose a community approach. No, this is the challenge in our centuries. How continue the liberties, individual liberties in this complex situation, in this virtual situation, is very difficult now. The state, no, it's very easy for the state, it's very easy for the companies to access the personal data, the people. Europe has a law, but the Euro law is for Western Europe, not for Africa, not for Asia, not for Latin America. So in this moment, we can see the artificial intelligence, no? The China proposed, the American proposed, and Europe is in this activities very distant Europe. No, Europe in this year decide we can work harder to join China and America. No, so you work in Slovenia. Slovenia in the past member the Yugoslavia. You know, no, you know this is difficult moment, the transition between authorities regime and democratic regime. You know the Bosnian people, no, the Bosnian migration is very difficult. Now we can see the Ukrainian migration. I have friends in Russia, I have friends in Poland, I have friends in Kiev, but in this moment very difficult for the people, the academic, the 20 years in the activities now is they can talk, they can share. It's tragic moment for a lot of people. The Ukrainian people, yes, go to Europe, go to America, but in this moment change the law. For example, in America, the Europe with OTAN, with NATO, stayed in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, lot of people to Afghanistan were in Europe, were in America, in Canada, but in this moment finish this special condition for the women, no, for the Afghan women. University is in this moment it's very difficult to continue, no, to fight for the individual liberties. Your work and the other college is very important in this moment, because in this moment we can see they build the 21st century. No, it's similar to the last century. In the 20s, the people see the 29th, the New Deal, the intervention of the state, the economic intervention of the state in the economy. No, is the in general the 20 for the 20th century was very important, because in the 40, 15, 16 continued this idea, the 20s. I don't know, but in this moment it's similar to the 1 century ago. Well, in your work, you know Latin American region, you know Colombia. So, Union Europe could be the projection, the Union Europe, the Brussels, to this world, because in this moment, America and Russia talk about the Ukrainian war. Yes, America in London to talk to United Kingdom, to talk with the French, Union Europe, but probably the idea, the American idea, no, the Trump idea about the war will survive, no, Europe approach, no. So you are members of the Union Europe. In this moment, what is the feelings, the academics in Union Europe, no? What is the feelings, the people in the Brussels, no? The networks, the academic network in this moment, because Harvard, the last week, the federal government said, is in this moment you can change these activities. If you not change, we can stop the exception, no? In this moment, we can see in Germany, the second party, very strong, is a national party. We can see Meloni in Washington said, we fight to Western great again, no? Meloni, no, the Italy. Meloni at the same is member of the Union of Europe, but it's different approach to France or Germany, no? And Scandinavian country, there are strong experience in the cooperation. My country, Peru, has a budget, a project, the Norway, for the forest, for the Amazonian forest. Especially the Norway, the Denmark and Sweden, no, is a different approach to the Western, no. The people say Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, similar look like socialists. Well, it's a different experience if you comparison with Spain, with Italy, or United Kingdom, no? So many questions, Katja, sorry, but it's very important your experience in this moment.
Yes, thank you very much. And these are really very good and important points that you are making. And I think that you are right in sort of pointing out that we are at a very special moment in history now, that that our freedoms are being threatened in so many ways, and that we are also seeing a change in the international system, also of international law and rights, but also in terms of our academic freedoms that are being threatened. So I think what is happening is actually not simply happening in the United States, but it has sort of reverberations across the world. And what we are seeing is that, as you pointed out, that there is a connection between sort of this nationalist politics and politicians, between, let's say, Trump administration and administration of Viktor Orban in Hungary, or Giorgia Meloni in Italy. Not that they are the same, but that they are sort of playing on each other. And also we are seeing that sort of the current US administration is actually, in a way, treating authoritarian leaders actually better than they're treating what they were previously their European allies. So there is a sort of a resurgence of authoritarianism in terms of also their international, I wouldn't say legitimacy, but it is an effort to sort of empower authoritarian leaders. And I think the President Bukele, how he was, I had this tweet from the US Secretary Rubio, how he talked about President Bukele as the ally of the United States, I think is very sort of telling. So we see that authoritarian governments are seeing an increasing sort of, and also when it comes to, for example, Israel and so on, and the support that the country is getting from the United States. So I think that you are right in pointing out that we cannot see this as an isolating phenomenon. We have to have a global outlook, that we see a global resurgence both of nationalist politics, but also of authoritarian forms of governance. And the question is then also, how do we react to that? Because these developments also represent a challenge to the academia. You mentioned Harvard, and that they are pushing back against the current government. But what I think sort of we know is that populist discourse, in a way, derides the judgment of experts, also of academic experts. That it sort of says, we listen to the people, we do not want to listen to academic as expert elites. And I think this is very much present also in these discourses about crimmigration. So yes, I think it is a worrying time. And you mentioned that I come originally from Slovenia, and I've sort of lived through both an authoritarian system, but also a system that was actually, in a way, that was a socialist system, and it had a very strong state and very strong also social institutions. So it was, in a way, a duality there that I think was very interesting. And in that way, living in Norway, which also has a very strong sort of welfare state. But what is interesting about Scandinavian society is that it's not often sort of acknowledged, is that they are very progressive in terms of the welfare state, the social causes that they are promoting, and also that they are investing a lot in international aid still, thankfully. but at the same time that also they have a sort of a very hard edge, that they are, in a way you could say, soft on the inside on the inside, but they have a hard outer edge. So they also have very hard immigration policies, actually. So that there is a lot of duality there. But yes, I think that you're right, that we live in a time where sort of question of liberty is a very central one, and the question of the rule of law that is being very much put under pressure, and also of academic independence. Yes.
Thank you, Katja. Amigos, amigas, pueden compartir su pregunta, su comentario. Sí, por favor. Sí, Carolina. Sí.
Thanks, Professor. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the dissertation, Professor Katja. And I've seen, because of my expertise at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, these kind of problems that we are facing this month. For example, the United States deportation, our nationals from Peru and also from other countries. And I have a doubt. Maybe you can help me with this. I'm a graduate student from San Marcos, and I want to do my research about immigration and this kind of term that is a new term, because I think that it's from 2019 or something, Crimmigration, that merge maybe criminal law and immigration law. What could be your advice maybe for international law students that can have maybe can design new policies or can do something with that? Maybe you have some ideas for us.
Thank you very much. It is a very good question about what can be done. And I think actually there is quite a lot that can be done in terms of sort of thinking differently about rights, and about both about due process and also about sort of rights of those people who are being deported. Because often the people who are being deported, they are defined as foreign citizens, but many of them have lived their entire life in the country that they are being deported from, for example. And we see that actually, or at least it seems to me, as far as I can see, is that Latin American countries have been, in terms of jurisprudence, much better than, for example, the European Court of Human Rights, in sort of acknowledging that people are not simply aliens if they do not have citizenship of a country, but that you can have different types of belonging, and that the fact that you have lived in a country for a very long time, that you have spent your childhood in a country, I think is a quite important counter argument to deportation. So in that way, I think we need to think in different ways and challenge the sort of the importance that is given to citizenship in terms of deportation, and need to acknowledge that people can have many belongings. That, for example, as Hector was mentioned, I was born in Slovenia, and then which was former Yugoslavia, but have now lived for 30 years in Norway. So, and where I have my family, I have children in this country. So in a way, if I were to be deported, a deportation is then not only a punishment if I committed an offense for me, but also for my children. It involves family separation and so on. So I think it's important that we push back against this idea that deportation is natural because you are not a citizen of a country. I think it's quite important that we sort of develop new legal precedents in terms of these kinds of policies, and also protecting the rights of people, that they cannot be sent to countries where they face persecution, that the states are responsible for the people that are being sent out. And I think the US Supreme Court now has made a statement, much clearer one, about sort of the need to think about the rights of the people who are, or especially this one individual who is being deported, and the challenges to his rights that he's facing because of the actions of the US government. I don't know if that answers your question, but at least this is what I would think in terms of policies that need to be developed.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. And yeah, maybe if, we have here our professors from the Faculty of Law of San Marcos in immigration could be apply in our courses, maybe for our teachers. They can have these kind of subjects or topics in terms of crime and criminology classes for us. So thank you again for your time and for share your experience here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Katja, Caroline is a total student the Department of Law, Faculty of Law. She take a semester in Bologna University and Italy, and Lakehead University in Canada. Yes, it's a good projection over university to the postgraduate study in foreign countries. No? Could be in Oslo University. In your university, the graduate study is in English?
No, unfortunately not, but we have a lot of courses in English. So we offer, and we have exchange students, a lot of exchange students. But what I think is quite unfortunate, and I hope the Norwegian government will change that policy, is that traditionally education in Norway and our courses have been free, but then the last government then changed and imposed actually quite high fees on people coming from non-European countries, on students from non-European countries, which has really reduced the number of students from non-European countries that we have currently. But we are hoping that the government will change that, because I think this is very, very unfortunate.
My seminar, the Global Study, the last year and this year host students from Sao Paulo University. They take 1 month in 1 month and a half in Lima to know about the research and project their research. San Marcos University is a public university of Peru. The principal place is in capital, but at the same time we have a place in the province, the Amazonia, Villarrica, Central Amazonia. The highlands of Ollón is a mining place, and the coast, the Peruvian coast, the central Peruvian coast is a desert, difficult with the water. It's a special experience to contrast Amazonia. In central coast, we have place in Guarmey, Chancay. There are ports. Principal Chancay is a new mega port in north of Lima. The last Chilca. Chilca is in the south of Lima, near 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. The Lima is a electric pole in Lima for the capital. I sure your students from Oslo University could be a good experience in take 1 semester, or could be research in Lima in San Marcos University.
I think actually this would be really a unique opportunity, and what my department has been, our department has been doing is also developing a lot of what we call green criminology and environmental perspective. So my co-author, colleague David Rodriguez Goyes, who's from Colombia, he has been working a lot within green criminology, and also other colleagues. So we have research projects also on environmental issues. So I think this would be really, really relevant.
Peru, as many countries of South America, in this century, in this year, has a special experience with migration, the Venezuelan migration. 8 years ago, 9 years ago, started big migration. In this moment, in Peru live 1 million, more than 1 million Venezuelan people. Our state, local state, central state, local authorities, central authority develop his experience, his attitude to this new situation. It's very challenge. It's very difficult for Peruvians and for Venezuelans because, as you know Colombia, the criminal aspect is connected with some aspect in the migration. For us, it's a new experience. Could be for the other countries. It's a long experience, but especially for Peru, it's recently 10 years ago, 5 years ago, no? Mm-hmm. So the law, the authorities, the states' attitude to the migration, is this aspect very important. Experience the other countries with a long tradition with migration.
Yes, I can see that, and as you say, it is. When I was in Colombia, it was a similar development, and I think it just shows how these questions of crimmigration, of connection between immigration and crime, is in a way universal. That I think since you mentioned that Carolina was in Bologna, there Professor Dario Melossi, he has written a very nice book on connections between immigration and crime, and points out that this is a sort of a primordial aspect of any society, is the movement of people, and also of connection of these people who move to a different country or a different society, connecting them with crime and the intersections with crime. So I think this is actually, it's not unique. It's that I think almost any society today sort of has to face. If you go to I don't know, to Pakistan, you have sort of citizens of other countries there, or if you go to India, you have the connection with Bangladesh and so on. So this is something that is happening in many countries.
Katja, in the seminar participated professor from Javeriana. Javeriana is a university of Colombia. A good friend, the former cultural attaché, the Italy embassy, a good friend, the seminar, the Italy cultural attaché from Peru live in Ljubljana, in your city, know the University of Ljubljana. And Professor Marta Sequerra de Javeriana, good friends, has some modes the research in Ljubljana University. So we can project, start activities with Ljubljana University. If you can guide in this university and professor in global study, could be a good advice.
Well, I'm very, very glad to hear that, and I wasn't aware that there are so many connections. It just shows how global the field that we are working is. So yes, I'm really glad to hear that, and I think it also reminds me that I was born in Yugoslavia, which was part of this independent league of nations, which weren't part of the Soviet bloc and not part of NATO, but sort of trying to develop a different kind of global connections. that I think it was partly successful at least for a time, but I think it's actually a good in a way tradition to continue.
Yes, our good friends live in La Giulia, la regione Giulia in Italy is next to the Ljubljana, Slovenia. So it's yes, it's Ljubljana and Slovenia is yes, it's part of the Yugoslavia, but it's different to the Serbia or Macedonia. It's yes, the same country, but a different social economy situation. Well, Katja, at the same time with Oslo, St. Mark University has agreement with Oslo and National University. Your university is the oldest university in Norway. It's a public university. And the idea is work to the people, no? Work to the young people, no? I'm sure students at St. Mark University could be very important, this Scandinavian Norway approach, no? Not only in the law, no? In different academic topics, no? I'm sure for the Norway student could be very interesting, very important in their life to know Lima, to know Peru, and to develop activities in Peru. It's difficult, yes, of course, very difficult. We have 7 hours difference. It's a distance. I could imagine and travel to Oslo to Lima is Oslo to Amsterdam. Amsterdam, yes, to Lima. Could be 60 some hours, no? Some hours. But I'm sure this is very important for the student and transnational and south and north, no? Share, no? South, global south experience and north, global north experience, no? I project this is a challenge. This is our century, 21st century. It's very difficult, of course.
Yes, I think you're right that it is difficult, but I think also that it is possible, and perhaps sometimes smaller initiatives, you have to start somewhere. So I really do hope that it's something like this is possible also. And as I said, I'm also hoping that the Norwegian government will open for more scholarships and also for not having these high fees for students that are coming from outside of Europe. I think this would be really important for us, that it has been a real loss that also sort of Norway has closed in a way, and in a educational sense. I think it's really important to have students.
In South America, we have activity with Sao Paulo University, National University of Colombia, National University of Chile. If you project visit South America, if you visit Sao Paulo, Bogota, and Santiago, Lima is near, could be opportunity to know Lima, to know San Mark, could be this on the next year. Do you project visit South America?
Sorry, I didn't the last question.
Do you project visit South America this year or next year?
Oh, no, not immediately, no, but I know that you have talked to my colleague Sveinung Sandberg, who I think he has a lot of he has a lot of plans, but I don't have not in the coming year, no. But I have been sort of cooperating also with Massimo Sozzo in Argentina. And yeah, I'm not sure yet. Yeah.
Yes, I know you remember this Oxford group of research, no? Yes, with United Kingdom University, we have some activities with the King College London, College University of London. London is no contact in South America, and Peru and Lima, no? In this, what is your experience in this research in Oxford, in this group about the immigration?
I think what we are seeing is a development of this global group of scholars, also called border criminology. So I think if you are interested, you should look up the Border Criminology's webpage. They both post really interesting articles on scholarship and current developments. But also what they're trying to do is develop a network of scholars and make it into a properly global network of scholars that are looking at questions of border control. So I think it is this border criminology is situated in Oxford, but it is really hoping to become a global network, and is trying. So I'll post it for you also. That I think it would be a really interesting sort of network if you're interested in continuing this topic. It's an interesting network to sort of look into. And so I think my colleague Mary Bosworth, that I've sort of written a handbook on border criminology with, is actually could be a really interesting person to invite to as well.
Thank you. Katja, I would like to share with you an experience. In Lima, in Peru, we have a long Christian tradition. You know? In this tradition, we have Señor de los Milagros. It's a Catholic image, very important. But we have big communities in Italy, in La Toscana, in Lombardia. In October, you can see in Firenze. In October, you can see in Milano the Peruvian community, but not only Peruvian, the Latin communities, the Colombian, Chileans, and the other part, the Latins in Lombardia and Firenze join this meeting around about Señor de los Milagros and connect the church, the secondary church, the migrant church, the church for migrants, to the principal church, to the cathedral. In Firenze, Santa Maria del Fiore, and Milano, il Duomo de Milano. It's very interesting because the people, the Italians, see the not only Peruvian, the Latin community to connect, to connect with the big community in the friendly, in the common interest and spiritual belief.
Well, thank you very much for informing me. And to me, this is really interesting because through my work on migration, I have also actually cooperated with the theological scholars because actually theological thinking and religion has been an important aspect both in Norway, but I think also in Europe and also in Italy, and especially with the Pope that has just passed away, who has been a very important figure for speaking also about migrants' rights. This sort of this universal narrative about humanity that I think so there have been sort of connections, and I've worked together with also theological scholars on questions of migration. So thank you for informing me.
Katja, sorry for the technical problem. Katja, the sport is very important to connect the local community and the foreign community. In Sweden, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is an example, the migration connection with the local communities, local national population, In Norway, the soccer, In the soccer, you have many examples, the Albanese, no, in Switzerland, or the Bosnian people who play for the national team. So this is way, no, the sport approach to the connect the communities and connect the people. You can share the Norway experience. The people at the same time know, no, in Sweden, in Stockholm, it's very difficult with the certain parts, the Stockholm, for the criminality. Yes, but at the same time, we have the sport is opportunity to connect people, no? In Norway, it's similar.
Yeah, yes, they're definitely similar. So I think also that, yeah, that football is something, has something, and also about sort of suddenly making people feel included into the sort of common we, and like being citizens and belong. So yes, I agree with you that this is important, yes.
Well, amigos, amigas, ¿tienen algún comentario? ¿Tienen una pregunta para el profesor Katja Franko? Bien. Katja, thank you very much for your presentation. I hope that you can visit Lima. In 10 years, Lima will celebrate 500 years, the foundation, the Spanish foundation. Lima is research about the past. Yes, we will celebrate 500 years the Spanish foundation, but the indigenous Lima is a long history, 1000 before the Spanish. Spanish is Lima is a city similar to big city in the world. Near Lima, we have Pachacamac. Pachacamac is a indigenous temple, the early Christian area, no? Long time before the Spanish conquest. So I hope in this time you can visit and know Lima and of course San Marcos University.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. I would love to. Yes, thank you very much. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and also talking about all these connections that exist across the world. So thank you very much.
We have time, Katja. We have time. Amigos, amigas, por favor, prendan su cámara para tomar una captura de la sesión. Por favor, prendan su cámara para tomar una captura de la sesión. Daniel, por favor, ¿tienes lista la captura de sesión? Por favor, tú danos la cuenta. Por favor, amigos, prendan su cámara. Un momento. Daniel, indícanos, por favor. Well, thank you very much, Katja. Yes, I sent some message to different directors in your university. Yes, of course, in faculty of law, you have different departments and different groups of research. Very interesting, very important for us. Yes, it takes time. It takes time. Yes, Norway and Peru is a different country in cultural, society, and economic situation. But in this moment, the projection is Peru will be the principal economy in South Pacific, in South America. The Pacific is the principal way in this moment. The south of China with Brazil, very strong connection. In the middle, the China and Brazil is Peru. Peru is similar and bridge between Brazil, Sao Paulo, and Canton, China. This is I suppose this is the projection, my country in this 21st century. Brazil, China, very important. And of course, in this axis, we can share activities with different countries, different universities of the world.
Thank you very much again for the invitation. And yes, I think it's very important that we sort of orient ourselves broadly, and I hope we can continue the contact. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Amigos, amigas, muchas gracias por su presencia. Les hago presente que el 28 de abril a las 10 de la mañana nos acompaña el director de Ingeniería Electrónica de la Universidad de Extremadura. La Universidad de Extremadura se ubica pues en Cáceres, en Mérida, en Badajoz, en España, universidad con la cual tenemos convenio, y los alumnos de la Universidad de San Marcos toman usualmente un semestre de pregrado en esta universidad. Estamos el 28 con el director de Ingeniería Electrónica y el 29 estamos con el director del Departamento de Derecho de la Universidad de Sao Paulo. Actualmente tenemos una alumna de Derecho de San Marcos en esta universidad y otros alumnos, 5 en total, pero una alumna en Derecho. Entonces, esta semana que viene nos acompaña la Universidad de Extremadura y la Universidad de Sao Paulo, ambos a las 10 de la mañana y Sao Paulo a las 2 de la tarde. Muchas gracias por su presencia y estamos en contacto. Thank you, Katja.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Katja, in your experience, what is the best mode to visit Oslo? The best time to visit Oslo. And visit your university, of course.
Yes, June, I would say. June is a good month. Not July, because then everybody is on holiday. But June is a good month, or May. May is also a good month. Yeah.
In May we celebrate our anniversary. This anniversary is 417 years old. Yes, of course, Jan could be a good moment to visit your university.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure, Katja. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Katja. See you soon. Take care.